skeptic. Hi, this is Unimagination. My daughter just finished the book of Mice and Men, and we're analyzing it and talking about it. And the last time I read this book was about 30 years ago. So here I am refreshing and going over it. And I have a bone to pick with Steinbeck. The first thing is this man was a real pessimist. Real pessimist. Now, we all know that, Grapes of Wrath. Real pessimist. But it really bothers me because this is going to be a massive spoiler alert if you have not at all read the book. It really bothers me because the whole book, it's called Of Mice and Men, and the whole book revolves around the line, the best laid plans of mice and men often go awry, which is another way of saying no matter how hard you plan, shit's going to hit the fan. Thank you. Thank you. And it ends, and shit has hit the fan, and there you go. You're not going to get your plans. And I'm like, you are such a pessimist. Oh, it drove me crazy. And there's no solution. There's no depth to it. There's no, you planned for the best and you got the worst. The end. And I'm like, why did you leave on that note? Because it's Steinbeck. Because Steinbeck always ended on that kind of a note. So there's like a whole nother section here, and it's the Great Depression. I get it, but at the same time, and it's very much that mentality from that time period, but it's driving me crazy. I'm like, no, there's like a whole second half to the story, not to that story, but to the moral of the story that he doesn't even dive into over and over again, and it's driving me nuts. So this space right now is me just like pulling apart Steinbeck and analyzing this in depth. No matter how hard you plan, shit's gonna hit the fan. Bottom line, life consists of you make a dream, you're gonna get an obstacle. That's life, but it doesn't stop there. You're supposed to be learning and mastering the skills of problem solving so that you can overcome the obstacles so you can continue to get your goal. But we completely ignore that part of the process. So it's this whole, oh, life is going to be going great. Oh, shit has hit the fan. We now lay down and die. And it's really this lay down and die mentality. It's a lay down and die mentality. And I'm going, what the fuck is wrong with everybody? I'll tell you what's wrong with everybody. We're all reading Steinbeck. And I'm going, okay, so shit just hit the fan, book ends. And I'm going, no, why did you just lay down and die? Oh, it's driving me crazy. So there very much is this concept of shit hits the fan, you've got an obstacle, time to lay down and die. We call this in psychology flopping. And if you don't turn on that part of your brain, I'm going to talk to you about how, if you don't turn on that part of your brain that problem solves, you're never going to learn that skill to overcome the obstacle so you can pursue your dream. And the people who get their dreams are the ones who learn this lesson. Everybody else is reading Steinbeck and following his books. Don't do that. Stop laying down and dying. And the more you practice the skill, problem solving, the better you get at it. The more you overcome the obstacle until you get an obstacle. And this is the best part. The obstacles get smaller and smaller because your problem solving skills get bigger and bigger. Why doesn't Steinbeck talk about this? No, it's okay. End of the book. Yeah, your best laid plans just got out the window. Time to lay down and die. End of the book. Every time. He does this with the Pearl. He does this with Grapes of Wrath. He does it with Of Mice and Men. And I'm like, dude, he was a pessimist. The point is, you're supposed to expect and plan on those obstacles, and you're supposed to make preparations for overcoming those obstacles through skill building and problem solving, which we are not taught how to do. So once you hone that skill of problem solving, but there's two sides to this. There's the actual problem solving where you're making the execution. You're analyzing. This is math and logic. You're analyzing the situation. You are assessing what the problem is. You're diagnosing it. You are putting together a solution, and you are overcoming it. Now, most people, when they do attempt this, are only working with a fraction of the equation, which is why they often come up with the wrong solution. The second half of problem solving, the balloon just scared the shit out of me. I'm just like, ah! You know what? These stupid balloons. The other half of the other part of problem solving is training your brain to turn on the problem solving. And this is a skill. This is a skill. There is the problem arises and people shut down. Problem arises and people freeze. And problem arises and people blend in. Disguise. Let's go disguise. So you get disguise, freeze, or flop. And that's really is. That's really it. If you disguise, these are the people who laugh when everyone else is laughing, because that's how you fit in. So it's disguising yourself. It is flopping, where you just shut down, almost become a catatonic state. And then the other side is when you freeze. And that's your deer in the headlights. So that is what most people do. If you fight or if you run away, that's not a fear response. That's a defense response. And that's actually what you're supposed to do. That's good. If you are fighting, fantastic. If you are running away, fantastic. It's this other group. This is where I really get frustrated at this terminology. Fear response is not fight or flight. That is actually healthy, defensive system self-preservation. You're supposed to fight or flight. Fear systems disguise, flop, or freeze. So if you're disguising yourself, that's called fawning. It means you're going along with what everyone else is. This is where somebody says to you, can I have sex with you? And you say yes when you mean no. It's because you're fawning. Flopping is when you just pass out, you completely shut down, and you lay immobile on the ground. It is a full system failure shutdown. And then freezing is when you just stand there unable to make a decision because you are deer in the headlights. That is fear response. That is what needs to be addressed. So problem solving is another option. So those are the 5 options. You've got the 2 healthy defense, fight or flight. You have the 3 fear responses, disguise, flop, freeze. And then you've got problem solving. Problem solving is what happens after you fight or flee. And after you flee, there's supposed to be that moment of, all right, let's sit down and analyze where I went wrong, that I ended up in that situation. No one is doing this. When you train yourself to do this, it's a whole nother game. It's a whole like, wow. It changes everything. And this is the juice. This is the part where you start to sit down and you start to dissect the situation to figure out what you did to put yourself in that situation over and over again. This is the predecessor to trauma. This is all the stuff that happens before trauma occurs. If trauma is happening to you, it's because you are not using discernment and you are not doing this. You are not assessing, troubleshooting, problem solving. You're not doing it. You're not taught to do it. No one is taught to do this. Some people figure it out and other people just, it never occurs to them. And in other cases, we're actually trained to not do it. So becoming aware of this, understanding that, first of all, the whole concept of your fear system or fear response is mislabeled. That's wrong. It's defense, fight or flight, which is fantastic. Again, that's what you're supposed to do because that's defensive. That's self-preservation working. If it's not working, it means you're disguising yourself, fawning, you're flopping, or you're freezing. So you don't want to be doing that. If you struggle with doing that, you got a lot of work to do. It's training yourself how to move into the fight or flight, self-preservation. Once you get into the self-preservation, it is vital that you take a step back and go, okay, I need to step back, reassess, deliberate, and come up with a new plan and deny access to those assholes. Denying access is personal law, personal control, and boundary setting. We're not doing this. We're not learning this, which is why we have a problem that we have. It's as bad as it is. So once you understand this, once you're starting to put this into your register of, I'm going to practice thinking about this, that's a skill. Once you practice this skill, thinking about assessing and problem solving and diagnosing a problem so you can prevent it from happening in the future, then you can start redirecting your life and steering it away from those problems. Then you get into problem solving and the mastery of that skill, actually execution of a problem. Once you have that down to a science, once you have that all figured out, and once you've developed that skill, those obstacles get smaller and smaller. So that by the time you've mastered problem solving, you're never going to have obstacles because you're going to avoid them in most cases. And if you do hit an obstacle, you're going to annihilate it. I want you to really process this. How would your life be different if you learned how to steer away from all problems, and if one happens to get into your way, you annihilate it with problem solving? This is why this information is so vital. Now you are in control of your life. And it starts with, how did I get myself in that situation? Maybe I should reassess who has access to me. Those are the words, people. Those are the words. Those are the words. I did that to me because I did not use discernment. See, those are the words. As soon as you start to take on responsibility, as soon as you really hone in on self-authority, completely changes the way you think about everything, because that allows you to change the situation. It allows you are allowing you. Say those words with me. You are allowing you. And that is really the truth of it. When you start to take responsibility for yourself, where you are located, who you decide to engage with, this is not narcissist talk. This is happy, healthy people talk. This is how happy, healthy people talk. They say these things because they know, oh, I'm in charge. I don't let other people be in charge of me. I don't, because I don't think like that. And that's all it is. It is that simple. When you start to use the words, it's going to feel weird at first, but the more you use the words, I let myself get into that situation. Now, what can I do to prevent that situation in my future? Well, maybe I shouldn't allow that person access to me, but they're your mother. Yeah, and she's a bitch. Maybe I shouldn't allow access to her. It doesn't matter that she's your mother. That does not give her the right to treat you like shit. And once you start to really change this, once you really start to shape your mindset around this concept, it does two things. The first thing it does is it keeps you safe, but I'm just going to say it, it punishes the offender in a very weird way, a good way. And I hate to use the word punishing, but it communicates the point. The punishment is, you don't get access to me. And that punishment teaches them, maybe I shouldn't be an asshole. Where would the world be if every victim decided to punish the abuser by denying access to the abuser? Abusers would think things like, maybe I shouldn't be an asshole. Every time I'm an asshole to somebody, they cut me out of their life. Maybe I shouldn't be an asshole to people. I'm going to stop being an asshole. The reason why abusers are abusing is because the victims let them. Because the victims teach them that it's okay by continuing access with them, because there's no consequence to the abuse. Give them the consequence to the abuse. Deny access. The more you allow an abuser to abuse you, the more you teach them that it's okay. The moment the abuser says, you're not allowed to abuse me anymore, and as a result, there's going to be a consequence. It's called, you have been denied access. Why are you punishing me? Because you're an asshole. That's why. Because you don't know how to be nice to people. So you don't get to play with me. Go back to 2- and 3-year-old play school. Like, really? And when you start to think like this, your caliber of people significantly increases. The people who are around you significantly increases. It's literally a personal standard of, this is my play pool, and only people who are nice and ethical are allowed in my play pool. You're not going to be nice, you don't get to be in my play pool. Get out. That's that simple. It's really, it really is simple. Sometimes it's not easy, or I'm sorry, sometimes it's not easy, but it is simple. And when you start thinking like this, that caliber, you're raising the bar. You're telling people, oh, I'm sorry, you want to come in here? Well, it is free, but it's going to cost you manners and being nice. I have a rule where if somebody talks narcissist language around me, they're not allowed around me, because I don't want to mirror that language, because then I start attracting narcissists. So it's a rule around my people. This is my personal rule for me. Anna doesn't allow people who speak like narcissists around her. And as a result, those people change the way they speak just to hang out with me. And if they don't hang out with me, which is okay. They're not my people, because I don't hang out with narcissists. So I make sure that I don't speak like that. If you speak like you're blaming everybody, you're going to attract people who blame everybody. If you attract people, or if you speak like you're a victim and you have no responsibility over who you hang out with, you're going to attract people who have no responsibility and who take no control over their life. So when you start talking like somebody who takes responsibility over your life, you attract people who take responsibility over their life. And if you've grown up in a narcissistic language environment, it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel gross to you at first. But this is where you've got to choose. Are you going to, the reason why it feels wrong is because that's how you've been taught. So once you reteach yourself a new lesson, your language changes. And when your language changes, the people around you change. And suddenly the people who don't talk like that stay away from you. And if you're hanging on to somebody because you're making an exception, well, that's interesting, because that's where psychologically you get into like a standoff where the stronger power is going to dominate. So if you're not the stronger power, you're going to submit. This is power dynamics on a level. And if you don't have the strength to stand up against that kind of atmosphere, you're going to submit to it. And now you're using discernment in the sense of, am I going to choose to be stronger than this person or separate them from my life? I'm this way with my brother. I do not have the ability yet. Well, actually, I do. I did. That's why he's not in my life. Is he refused to change the way he talked to me. And I'm like, no, you're not allowed to talk to me anymore, because I've told you, if you're going to talk to me like that, that's not what I'm for. And put down the boundary, and it's denied access. And it's absolutely about self-priority, making sure that you are treating yourself better, making sure that you are absolutely taking responsibility for who you hang out with, because that's going to change you. It's going to affect you. So when you are in a situation where you are making plans for your life, you are going forward with your life, and you are confronting obstacles, it's going to be, again, there's two skills here. The first one is consciously practicing, mindfully practicing going from disguise, flop, freeze over to fight or flee, and then problem solve. And then when you problem solve, it's consciously choosing to practice the skills of problem solving to shrink the size of your obstacle, but also to navigate them so you avoid them to begin with. And once you master those two skills, oh, life is so fucking easy. I cannot tell you enough how easy life is. It truly, truly is. So thank you. Actually, no, that's really it, is life is hard because you don't have those two skills. That's it. Life is only hard because you lack those two skills. Those are the only two skills you need in life, is knowing how to navigate yourself away from obstacles and knowing how to problem solve to overcome obstacles when those obstacles arise. You do those two things, and your life is a piece of cake. Thank you so much, and may the kindest of words always find you.